Hello, hello. This is Dominic Walker presenting the MIT Professional Certificate in Cybersecurity Capstone project. Today, we will be covering the Equifax data breach of 2017. So, to go over today's agenda, we will be overviewing the breach, covering organizational and governance failures, as well as going into our root cause analysis, analyzing missteps in the subsequent response to the incident, as well as going over alternative incident response plans and covering preventative strategies while wrapping up on key lessons learned and identifying next steps for our organization we are going over today, Equifax. So, general overview. As we all know, Equifax is one of the major credit bureaus in the United States of America, and their online portal was built on the Apache Struts Foundation. Apache Struts is used for online services such as Equifax to be able to process large amounts of consumer data from the massive amount of traffic that they see to their online website. Now, in 2017, hackers successfully targeted Equifax in a major data heist. This left the records of more than 140 million records exposed. Now, since they are a major player in the credit score space, they did end up divulging unintentionally the information, including social security numbers, birth dates, etc. Now, this exploit was CVE 2017 5638, which was disclosed by Apache Struts months prior to the response by Equifax, which we will cover very soon here. Now, we go deeper into the general overview. We will see Apache Struts announce this vulnerability in March of 2017, which means that the vulnerability was left open for about 16 weeks. Now, the exploit window lasted from May 13th through July 30th, and was only disclosed to stakeholders on September 17th. From March to September, we are looking at right around 6 months between the time the patch was announced and the time that the disclosure was sent out to relevant stakeholders. Now, Equifax clearly displayed gross negligence, which cost them north of $500 million in litigation and fines. Now, we're going to go a bit deeper here into the organizational and governance issues at play. Number one, weak executive oversight and accountability. The C suite that we saw there was not handling their responsibilities properly, and we saw this reflected in their negligent security culture, seen here and properly highlighted in their poor patch management. As well as weak oversight, we also saw a major lack of integrity, such as Junying's insider trading, which allowed him to dodge initially um, six figures in capital losses in his portfolio from the subsequent drop in the enterprise value of Equifax following the data breach. Now, we also saw inadequate security risk management and non-compliance with NIST's cybersecurity framework. Now, when we dig into the root causes, we are primarily looking at, obviously, the unpatched vulnerability. Now, when we have inadequate vulnerability scanning and remediation practices in place, we see major fallout as we did here in the Equifax scenario. Now, the lack of standard operating procedures or SOPs to enforce automated patch deployment also played a major role. If you leave it up to manual updates and then you do not have a adequate security culture, this is what we see as the result. Now, when we go into the major missteps and the fallout, we're seeing number one, detection latency, 2.5 months of active exploitation without the organization having any knowledge is absolutely unacceptable. Now, also, when we find ourselves in a 6 week delay to public disclosure, that obviously causes major erosion of trust. Now, moving on to an alternative course of action that Equifax could have taken in order to either A, mitigate out the possibility of this happening, or even just ameliorate some of the fallout. Number one, we want to implement these NIST CSF frameworks that can help us, right? So we're one, going to go over detect, two, contain, three, respond, and four, recover. So my personal recommendation up front would be to deploy the Palo Alto Network's IPS, and additionally integrate an intrusion detection system, or a SIEM, for real-time alerts. Now we also want to um, bring about immediate network segmentation and system isolation, as well as implementing a 3-day transparent disclosure to stakeholders policy. Now, also on the recover end, we want to be able to coordinate with third-party forensic investigators. They can make sure our systems are up to date and restore trust with the relevant stakeholders. Now, going into preventative strategies, we are going to see how they can solve these problems moving forward. Number one, identity and access management. Implement multi-factor authentication and principle of least privilege access controls. Now, following into patching automation, we mentioned this earlier, we want to be rolling out critical updates within 48 hours of these patches becoming available as a best practice. Now, also, data minimization and encryption are paramount. And finally, we are going to again stress regular red team and blue team exercises. This covers the detect and respond functions from NIST cybersecurity framework. Now we're going to finally map our strategy moving forward, because we do want to be in alignment with the NIST cybersecurity framework, covering both offensive and defensive approaches. Number one, start with the defensive. We want to conduct risk assessments, as well as take full inventory of our data assets. Next, as mentioned previously, identity and access management, patch management, and data encryption are paramount to protecting our data assets. And on the detection front, we want our SIEM dashboard to be fully accessible and usable by our SOC, assuming that you would have one at a organization that's holding critical personally identifiable information like Equifax, as well as continuous monitoring of our systems. We also want to have incident response playbooks, tabletop exercises, etc., as well as have backup validation and communication plans. Now, on our offensive side, this is where the purple teaming aspect comes in. We want to be able to simulate exploits. We also want to be able to monitor and block real-time intrusion attempts. And so this is where that collaboration aspect really comes in, right? Because the red team can feed its findings into the iteration process for the blue team to be able to fine-tune our defensive posture. Now, in terms of our key lessons learned, one, patch promptly. Two, we need continuous monitoring. And three, in the event of a fallout, we need to have clear communication with relevant stakeholders, because integrity, transparency, and accountability are some of the only things that can preserve the reputation of the organization during these times of stress. Now, in terms of our next steps, is to formalize our NIST cybersecurity framework alignment across identity and access management, defensive and offensive domains, as well as implementing, again, that 72-hour stakeholder notification process for data breaches, as well as scheduling quarterly red, blue team, purple teaming assessments across the organization. And finally, we do want to make sure that we are launching organization-wide cybersecurity training for our employees, as the endpoints can be the most commonly targeted points of exploit that cyber attackers are targeting in organizations, whether it's going through phishing, spear phishing, or just simple, poor password management. We need to make sure we are fostering a bottom-up as well as a top-down culture of security across our data landscape.